Ready. Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the special call August 17th meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Section 7A of the Open Meeting Act does allow our members to participate remote. Two members that are seeking leave are, one is due to illness and one is due to employment issues. So if I can have a motion to allow those members to attend remotely. It's member Dessart and member Eckhoff are seeking permission to attend remotely. Member Dessart's not feeling well and member Eckhoff has a employment. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Chaplin.
Here.
Member Chavez. Member Covert. Member Dessart.
Here.
Member DeCiani. Member Eckhoff. Member Garcia. Member Hart. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Pachalski. Member Renahan. Member Rutledge.
Here.
Member Schwarzy. Member Solomon. Member Tornatori. And Member Zay.
Okay, we have a quorum. I just want to thank everyone for attending this afternoon. I know sometimes these afternoon meetings can be a little inconvenient, but I really do appreciate it because we are in budget season and we do have a lot of work to get done. So with that, do we have no public comment? Thank you. With that, I would like to move on to our budget presentations. And first up, I would like to welcome Darlene Riscotti and Jeremy Dawson. If Jeremy's, you're not going to come up? Okay. I'll just have Darlene come up. And thank you so much, Darlene. Looking forward to your presentation.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for allowing me and my staff to be here and to present our budget. Pearls of wisdom I just shared. No, thank you so much for allowing me and to present our ROE budget request to you this afternoon. I also want to say thank you to each and every one of you for all that you've done in the last 18 months. You were very good to our office, particularly with the CARES Act dollars and helping us support more fully many of the most vulnerable families and children in DuPage County. The work with the internet connectivity was a savior for many of our children to keep their education going. We provided tutoring, with some of those dollars for our most vulnerable families that we work with directly with the Regional Office of Education. And there's so many more things. We provided trauma journals to our schools. We allotted a certain amount. Every single one of the 42 school districts in DuPage County picked them up and teachers are using them with their districts. So I just want to say thank you for that. And the other group I want to say thank you, and I think you're all aware of this, is I want to say thank you to my staff. I have the most amazing staff. Jeremy Dodson's here. He's in charge of our finance. These people never, ever left the office. I mean, they weren't all there on the same days, but they were there doing criminal background checks because we needed to get people into the schools, employed and into the schools. And that's a major part of that. We did things like that. We had an increase. I'm not sure if this is good or bad. We saw an increase of work permits amongst our 15-year-olds, so that was certainly an increase. And certainly we wanted these 15-year-olds to, if they desired to work, to help supplement their parents' income or their family income. But on the other hand, it's a cause of concern on the other end because I have to be sure these kids are going to come in the workforce. We also are in charge of the GED. So we made sure that, that even during all of this, that on lots of individuals, and I have the numbers in here, so that lots of individuals could get their GED so they could get employed and they could continue to move forward. So great staff, you're all great to work with. I cannot thank you enough for everything that you have done. So I just want to give you just a couple of little, if you want to go maybe skip a couple of slides. And I just want to know, because I know that some of you, this is new, you've never, I'm not even sure some of you even know what the Regional Office of Education does. We are in school statute, probably about 900 times we're referenced in there. Big part of it is compliance and oversight, service and support. I would say those are our two major functions, but I like to think that in a different way, what we do very much is to help to lead the schools in DuPage County. We help to strengthen, many of the programs and initiatives that are out there. We do a lot of supporting our staff, our children, our families, and we also partner. We have over 60 partnerships. I was trying to count with entities in DuPage County. NAMI, for example. Magical is another program. Kids Count, many programs. Ounce of Prevention for early childhood. So we have lots of different partnerships that we help to get out to our schools and to our families in DuPage County. And how do we do a lot of this? We do this really, I think we do a lot of this with shared services. I do believe that the districts in DuPage County, both public and private, they know me. I've been around for a while. They trust me. They come to us. We're able to do a lot of things together because they know that we're going to do it together and we're going to do it well on behalf of education in DuPage. We have collaboratives, early childhood collaboratives, networks. We do group purchasing. We do a lot of resource sharing. And the next area too, whole school, whole child. Many of you are, many people still think that, we're just about academics, but we're about so much more than just academics and teaching our children reading, writing, math, and science. We make sure that every child is taken care of the best that we can. This is where a lot of our partnering comes in as well too. So we help bring our partners together to help support our children, whether it's through food insecurity or whether it's with homelessness or no matter what the case may be, we try to be there to support our children. Last couple of years, we've really been focusing on kindergarten readiness. That's been very, very important to us to make sure that every child is prepared when they walk into that kindergarten classroom. Continuing education is extremely important, and thanks to all of you, I know that we have a lovely, lovely site over at the 503 building that we utilize for training, and we have been doing trainings. Most recently, we had to do trainings for bus evacuation, unfortunately, in case there was a shooting or anything on a bus, but we have to prepare our bus drivers. And so we had to be in person, and we did that in June. We ran several of those in June. So we've been meeting in person, both doing kind of a hybrid model as well too. So continuing education, especially when we talk about the current situation with trauma and mental health. I will say this, we have 42 of all of our school districts that have a trauma-informed certified trainer in their building. Many of my staff are the same as well too. We're certified trainers in that arena. We try a lot, and I know that this is very important to County Board member. This is to all of you. I didn't mean to just point out, but County Board member Schwartz and I have been talking to the whole drug education and the opioid and everything that's going on in that arena is something too that we keep on the forefront. And excitingly, we did a lot of work this year in education to careers, and we started a apprenticeship program, and we had 11 students. That may not sound like a lot, but we have 11 students that were involved in that program. 2 of them actually got hired by their manufacturing. We started in manufacturing. We're going into cybersecurity in January. We're going to go into nursing, and we're going to go into logistics after that too. But it's very exciting, very promising. And of course, very grateful to, we have a WIOA grant, and that helps us with our most vulnerable students as well to get them into careers and to education. So I just want to give you a few highlights. If you go to the next slide, just a few highlights here as well. DuPage County has been designated by the state of Illinois to be a SEL leadership hub. So, and what that means is that we'll be supporting our schools. There's 6 of us in the state of Illinois. We will be supporting our schools largely in trauma, largely with trauma informed, restorative practices, youth mental health. So doing a lot of that work as well. I did mention that we have a WIOA grant over the summer. We also collectively, this is where the networking and partnering came together. We collectively provided a summer school program where we brought some of the best best and brightest educators together. We had a K-12 curriculum that supported learning loss, and with curriculum, with lesson plans, and we hosted summer school. 32 of our 42 school districts participated in that. So it was a way, again, to save resources, work together, provide the very best for many of our most vulnerable children. I do want to point this out too, because I'm really proud of this. When we were first talking about the vaccines and how we're going to get vaccines, and we know the limited amount of vaccines that were available, we divided the county up. I divided the county up into 13 sites school sites. And of those 13 sites at our high schools, one of the things that we did is I told those 13 superintendents, get together, find out if your local Walgreens, if your local Mariano's, if your local Jewel Osco, if they are an approved provider. And we were able to get about 60,000 individuals, both staff, now students, and community members vaccinated, which was separate than what your health department was doing, because we had a difference. So we didn't take any of the resources that were for the most vulnerable for the health department. It was because we had these separate partnerships with some of these other entities, and it worked out really well. And so that was kind of an exciting part of all of this. And at least we tried to do our part and stopping, this virus. Other things that we're very much involved with is really helping to meet the needs of the most vulnerable, especially our low-income families in DuPage County. We have a huge initiative for 0 through 3 families. This year, we were also designated, we took over from the McCormick Foundation, the Illinois Civics Hub and Democracy School Initiative. And I think this is really important because I love our democracy and when I continue to see our democracy move forward in ways that, add value to everyone's life here in DuPage. So that's exciting. And then again, too, I want to thank you again for what you've done with all of your support. And then the next slide is really some statistics, which gets into some of the metrics that we provide. And I will have an annual report out in about a couple of weeks that will give more metrics, because we measure everything, that we do. Even with this social emotional hub that we're in charge of, we're going to be using our metric as the 5 essentials, which is a culture and climate survey that every school in DuPage County in the state of Illinois has to engage in, which really surveys students. Surveys students, staff, and families, parents, and that too. So we want to see if we're making a difference in that arena. And these are just some statistics. This is just my licensure department, almost 30,000 during COVID in the last year, phone calls, emails, on site. People coming into the office still, I said with the fingerprinting, we still provided professional development largely in a remote environment, and certainly had to switch very quickly to do many of our things by Zoom or in another format as well. And then you can see GED certificates, numbers here, too. So I just wanted to share that with you. The next slide, we did a lot of work. We served almost 2,000 families with the McKinney-Vento homeless services that we provide. And then just a list of our some of our partners here too. And certainly you are all one of them. And we do greatly appreciate that. So that was just kind of wanted to give you a couple of the highlights of what we do, kind of set the stage. We're just a small part of a big, entity here, but we really do try to bring value every day. And again, I'm grateful to my staff for what they do, because they're the ones that help every single day. And they make the office look good, and it helps us to, and they also help me to be still the strongest and according to many, the best ROE in the entire state of Illinois. So I am very proud of that. So I'm going to ask Jeremy then to come up, and he's just going to talk a little bit, just very briefly too, about our budget request and some other information that we'd like for you to have. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I want to just thank Dr. Riscotti for her tireless leadership, and also the full board, as well as our elected officials and our public service workers that are providing leadership and direction and resources to our public, to our most severe public communities during this pandemic. So thank you all for your endless and tireless leadership. This next section is gonna, basically, we're gonna cover the budget, but most importantly, we're gonna cover the head count as well as the FY21 budget, as well as the FY22 requests. So we'll get right into it. So the budget supports 14.1 FTE as our head count, which consists of the following positions, which includes the administrative assistants, 2 administrative assistants, 2 behavior interventionists, 2 division assistants, 2 division assistants part 2, as well as the account clerk and 4 senior staff assistants, 4 quarter FTE compliance and safety officers, as well as 1 first safety, I should say 1 superintendent. So that's 0.1 FTE for the assistant superintendent, which includes a budget of approximately $664,984, which is 78% of our entire budget. The other 22% of this budget is used for operational services, which consists of educational consultants, equity consultants, mental health consultants, IT support, as well as reimbursables, as well as travel. So FY21, the approved budget was $853,266. Okay, so this budget represents approximately 0.58% of the general fund budget that was approved by the board last year. So we're asking for a moderate increase to this budget of $79,753, which is supported by primarily salary increases, as well as an increase to our technology equipment line for approximately a little over $2,000. So basically, we're looking for a moderate increase to this budget, which will allow the ROE to continue to be the industry, or I should say, the lead in ROE with the support of the county and Illinois and all of Illinois. So we're looking for this increase to continue the good work that all of us are still doing during this pandemic. This is the detail to our budget. I won't get into it I won't drill down too much into this detail, but basically 77,558 represents our budget increase, which includes salaries as well as COLA increases and an adjustment to one of the FTEs for our behavior interventionists. And then the other portion represents $2,058 for our technology increase for any printers repairs or replacements that are slated to be up for replacement on a technology plan for FY22. So it's a highlight of the budget facts. Most of it's personnel, which represents 78% of our budget. But we're leveraging skills, experiences, human capital, which is a very important factor for us to continue this good work that we're doing within DuPage County. And we're looking for your support to do so. So basically, some of the requirements for most of our employees have changed throughout the course of their years that they've been here. And I want to say our span of years of experiences range from 5 years to 20 years of experience. And because of that, many of the criteria has changed within their job functions. So that includes being up to date on regulatory requirements, being knowledgeable and skillful of understanding the legal ramifications of various programs, grants, and compliancy work that we do, Also, that includes increased communication from a standpoint of just emails, correspondences to our constituents, also bilingual, which is something new for us since we have a growing population of bilingual speaking community or residents in DuPage County. So we also have to be able to speak that language and be able to assist them if need be. And then also ongoing training with systems. So constant training with systems from the state level to the local level to the county level. So our staff, in a nutshell, have a wealth of knowledge, and that's something we need to continue to support with this budget. So the next slide, which is a high-level summary. So basically, we're looking for a budget of $932,619, which supports basically our human capital here at DuPage County, but most importantly at the DuPage Regional Office of Education, which is 90 to 95% of our budget when you factor in salaries, as well as the consultants that we actually hire to do this good work. And then I will turn this back over to Dr. Darlene Riscotti for any closing remarks.
That's just a small adjustment of $80,000. And all of a sudden we're asking them. And all of a sudden we're asking them, you know what, oh, you're bilingual. So yes, you could help us here. Or, oh, you have that. And we're adding to their job responsibilities, but not adding anything to their salary. The good people, they have passion for the work that they're doing. And I appreciate them. So that is our ask. You know, and again, just thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, and I'm available. You know, you can call, text, come see me anytime you want. I'd love for some of the new folks too to come and even talk more about, you know, what our job does. And I hope that you can see that we really do try to bring value every single day to this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions at this time? All right, seeing none, great. Thank you.
Sharon,
Go ahead, Member Dessert.
thank you. My question is, the increase is not nominal. It's 9.3%, which is a pretty big ask, especially since we've gone through a pandemic and our sales taxes are down. 9.3%, is that all, Dr. Riscotti, is that all salary? Or where does the 9.3% increase in your budget from last year come from?
It's all salary. It's an increase in the salary of these individuals. And it's not every individual. What we did was kind of do a system analysis, kind of looked at, you know, what would, you know, whether others getting paid for the same. We're either on the lower end, you know, how you have the three classifications, we're either on the lower end. And like we said, I've had employees there, they're 10 years, and with a 1% increase every year, they're not. Where you do see, like in some of the cases where I know we have two, those are the employees that have been there like 20 years or 10 years. So they've been going up. But it's these other ones too. And then with the job market, they can get jobs anywhere, but I want them to stay with me.
Yeah, so you think this really will help with the retention of employees?
I really do. I mean, we try to provide, you know, good culture and climate, but, you know, incentives always help as well too.
Okay,
Salary
excuse me, I have to end conversation right now because
Doctor.
we've lost our quorum, so we have to wait. We lost. So we may have to take a recess until Member Bachowski and Member Ozog get back. I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I can't break the Open Meetings Act.
Member Pachowski, Madam Chair, Member Pachowski is the impact fee advisory meeting, which is on the schedule. So, Don is coming back. He's in the building.
Okay, I'm recessing the meeting for 5 minutes until a quorum is present. Okay, recognizing a physical quorum, we will resume the meeting. Our next presentation will be given by our state's attorney, Bob Berlin. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for coming. Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, hang on a second. We have a question for Darlene.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, actually. Ms. Rossetti mentioned that people just are not being paid enough. And I just want to remind all of our board members of the report we got from Nick Kottmeyer a couple of weeks ago, that we are falling behind our peer counties on these valuable people. And that I think if she needs that money to retain talent in her division, that we should agree to give her that term.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. Okay, and with that, come on up, Bob.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So everybody should have our proposal for fiscal year 2022, which is $10,336,264, the same budget that we received last year, with the addition of $1,014,500 for 18 additional headcount, which would include 13 attorneys and 5 support staff, so that we can handle the additional increased digital media evidence as a result of body cameras. I do want to say that we met with finance yesterday. We currently have 12 open positions, including 4 assistant state's attorney positions, 7 full-time and 1 part-time support staff. We discussed reclassifying some of those positions and funding those positions, which I think will help with the number of additional positions that we'll need. Also understanding that there's going to be a lag in hiring, as there always has been. We're never going to be able to hire that many people on day one. I do want to point out that in 2016, we reduced our headcount from 150 to 141 when we eliminated 9 positions. And then in 2015, we eliminated another position. And beginning in fiscal year 2018, we agreed to leave 8 support staff positions vacant. And it has stayed that way with the exception of 1 spot, which we did fill when we got tech share put into place. So over the past 11 years, we have stayed within our budget every year. We have always worked with the board to make sure that we stay within our budget. And I have every reason to believe that the same thing will happen this year. We've made the necessary cuts when we had to, and we have performed at the same level, absorbing those cuts to our budget. The budget that we came up with this year, the same as last year, is based on the number of cases we have, the increased felony caseload that we have seen really since 2016. And to give you some idea of where we're at, 2016, we charged 2,317 felonies. And there was a 25% increase between 2016 and 2019 when that number went up to 2,864. Last year in 2020, I would say is not a very good barometer of where we're at because of COVID, but we still charged over 2,400 felonies in 2020. This year, the first few months, again, because of the pandemic, those numbers are down. And in the first 6 months of 2021, we charged over 1,100 felonies. So we're on track for at least 2,200. There is some good news, and that is when you look at certain felonies, beginning with burglary, we saw a 95% increase between 2016 and 2019. This year so far, we've charged 102, which is significantly less than the 456 that we had in all of 2020. Aggravated vehicular hijacking, known as carjacking, we saw an increase in 2020. We charged 16 cases compared to 8 in 2019. So we were up 50%. Actually up 100% from 2020 to 2019. This year so far, we have charged 4. We're on pace for 8, and that is a huge reduction from where we were last year. Same holds true with armed robbery. We charged 25 in 2019. In 2020, that number went up to 43. Despite the decrease in overall felonies, clearly we saw an increase in violent crime. This year so far, we've charged 13 and we're on pace for 26, significantly less than 43. I believe the reason for that reduction is enforcement. We are very vocal when we charge these cases. These are serious, violent felonies. When they're committed with a gun, the minimum is 21 years. And the significant sentences that have been handed out, I believe, acts as a deterrent to keep violent criminals out of the county. In terms of caseloads, obviously it should be no surprise that the caseloads are up. Because of the pandemic, we were not able to dispose of cases at the normal rate. We saw a 17.3% increase in our felony caseloads in our felony courtrooms since 2019. And there are right now 2,931 felony cases that are pending. This time last year, there were 2,699. So it's a huge increase. Some of our felony courtrooms currently have, one of them has over 500 cases, but almost all of them, with the exception of one room, Actually, all of them have over 400. 547 being the largest, and there's 3 attorneys in each room. Our plan, because of the body cameras and the increased amount of evidence, is to actually add 1 felony assistant for each room, so that we'll have 4 attorneys in those rooms, and also add assistants in domestic violence in our misdemeanor rooms. In terms of the opioid epidemic, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we saw a huge increase again in the number of cases pending. A 32% increase in 2020 compared to where we were in 2019. There are currently 242 heroin fentanyl cases, possession cases that are pending. The good news is that our focus courtroom now has 1,168 cases pending. These are Class 4 drug possession cases. Almost all of them are getting the first offender, Section 410 probation. And if they complete the program, these cases can end up being dismissed and expunged. It's an award-winning courtroom. It continues to be. And we see those numbers, unfortunately, increasing. And it's been well documented, the increase in opioid and heroin use during the pandemic. In juvenile court, again, some good news. Our number of filings were down last year. We went from 446 juvenile delinquency petitions that were filed in 2019 to 247 filed in 2020. And this year so far, we filed 137. There's a couple reasons for that. Obviously, cases were down in general because of the pandemic, but the other reason is we're doing more diversion outside of court. Our juvenile probation department is without a doubt the best in the state of Illinois and continues to be. They do an outstanding job. All these cases are screened, and those cases that we feel that we can handle outside of court, we handle outside of court. And one of the advantages that we have in juvenile court is it's not just the minor who is a party to the case, but the minor's parents are parties to the case by law. And this allows us to get the services that are needed into the family. It's our juvenile courtrooms, again, when I started in DuPage County in 2004, we had 3 courtrooms, 3 attorneys in each courtroom. And now we're down to 2 juvenile courtrooms with 2 attorneys in each room. Our diversion court continues to grow. We have so far accepted over 350 cases into the program since we started, and over 222 have successfully completed the program. This program is for first-time nonviolent felonies. They plead guilty, but they're not sentenced. If they complete the program, which is typically a year long, they can go back in front of the judge. Their plea is withdrawn and the case is dismissed, and they can get those cases expunged. We continue to have a 97% success rate in that program. Child support, we continue to operate with an agreement that we have with the state. The funding comes from the state of Illinois. Once again, for federal fiscal year 2020, we collected more than $40 million in unpaid child support. Our metrics, again, we far do better than all of the surrounding collar counties that do their own child support prosecutions. So if we could put the slide up, please, regarding the Safety Act. So the reason for the increase that we've talked about, and I know I presented here a couple of months ago, is because of the increase in evidence that we're already starting to see. The law allows up till 2025 for all police departments to get body cameras for all of their officers. Many departments have already gone live with their body cameras, and we expect by January 1st, this coming January 1st, that there'll be close to 1,300 police officers equipped with body cameras in the county, which is really more than 50% of what we fully expect by the time we're all done. So when I presented a couple months ago, we used the study that was commissioned in Virginia. And this was a report that was issued by judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, Supreme Court justices, talking about their needs. And the ratio they came up with was 1 additional assistant state's attorney for every 75 cameras on the street. We're starting off, my request is 1 for every 100. And we expect, again, to have almost 1,300 cameras on the street by January 1st, which is why I'm asking for those 13 attorneys. Obviously, and I know we've had these discussions, again, we're not going to be able to hire them all at once. And as we go through the year, we're going to have a better idea of where we stand. Do we have enough? Do we need more? And it's just a wait and see. But I think I am very confident in saying we know we're going to need more because we've already seen the huge increase. The slide that you have in front of you, just to give you some some ideas of what we're talking about. On the top portion, we took just a sample case, a domestic violence case, a traffic case, a felony case, and 2 misdemeanor cases. And we looked at what was the digital media evidence before body cameras and what have we seen after body cameras. And you can see the huge increase in what we call DME, digital media evidence. The domestic battery case, a 254% increase. The traffic case, 400%. In the felony case, which was an aggravated discharge of a firearm, 393% increase. You can also see the total hours of digital media that is associated with each case. And the reason that's so important is, as we have explained before, the attorneys who are assigned to that case, they have to watch every single minute of every video. They just have to. And in many instances, if there's an interview of an important witness, it's going to be more than once. They're going to be going back and forth and actually having to sometimes copy some of that for presentation in court. If you look then at the numbers on the left and then the graph, which reflects those numbers, these are the number of body camera uploads, body worn camera uploads that we've seen. So in December 2020, we had 163 uploads. That number in 2 months, February of 2021, grew to 208. And then just this past June, we were up to 994 uploads of body cameras. So more departments have gone live with their body cameras well in advance of the required date. And the reality is this, they're going to make, those body cameras are going to make our cases a lot stronger, but the increase in time in viewing them and also dealing with FOIAs, we just got our first FOIA for body cameras, and the redaction that is involved when the cameras have juveniles or maybe informants that are on camera is incredibly time consuming, and that's the reason for that increase. So in conclusion, for our state's attorney's office budget, we again We'll continue to prosecute cases at the same level that we have in the past. We will continue to review plea offers on individual cases and make offers on an individual case-by-case basis, as we have always done. We will not make offers or negotiate pleas in cases because we cannot afford to try them. We never have done that. And it's not the right way to do business. But we just won't compromise public safety in order to save the cost of a trial. We do negotiate cases every single day because it's the right thing to do for many different reasons. And we will continue to do that. So we feel that the proposal that we have come up with will keep us at the same level. Again, we met with finance yesterday. We'll continue to work with them to figure out exactly how many of these new attorneys we're going to need along the way, and make the appropriate adjustments that we need to along with the board. Before I get to the Children's Center budget, are there any questions?
Do we have Member Shorzy? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. That was a wonderful presentation. Just so the 1.4 million for the potential 18 new employees, that's going to be variable based on how you proceed throughout the year, and it may not be the entire budget unless you think you're going to get to all 14 before, or all 18 before the end of the year. Or?
Correct. And the reality is it's very unlikely. I can tell you it takes time to hire people. And then we also have attrition. Just in the past 3 weeks, 3 assistant state attorneys, 2 have already left. 1 just gave their notice yesterday. And they're going into the private sector, making a lot more money, which is typically the case. So because of that, I know we're never going to be able to hire all of those people all at once. Unlikely to.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask, you talked about cuts in your staff in 2013, 2014, 2015. Were those cuts ever restored, or is that pretty much the level that you were working with until pretty much right now?
That's the level we've been working with. We agreed, actually, the cuts we made, we eliminated positions.
Right.
That was on our own. We eliminated those positions. We were able to use some of that money for raises,
Okay.
which were long overdue, merit raises. In 2018, we agreed to leave 8 support staff positions vacant, and we have left those vacant since then.
Okay.
So they're still on the books. They're just not funded. We did, as I said, we had to hire 1 person when we got TechShare up and running.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Member Selman.
Thank you. I just had a quick question on some of the technology charges and hoping you can just help me understand it more. So on the bottom of page 1, it talks about an increase for flash drives and external hard drives for phone dumps, and then computers and phones to handle the generated. Can you just explain what those are for? I just don't know what they are.
Sure. So hard drives, obviously, when we extract evidence from phones, or when we get thousands and thousands of pages of bank records on a financial case, we have to get those and transmit those to the defense attorneys. And the phone dumps, which cell phone dumps, are incredibly voluminous. When the police actually get into someone's cell phone pursuant to a search warrant, there's thousands of pages of documents in there. Photos, GPS information, emails, text messages, phone records. And we see a lot more of that going on in our cases.
Have you looked at like cloud services and that you've decided that these hardware is better, or is the hardware required? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
So, I mean, we do have For storage, yes, clearly we have cloud-based service. And we use, all of this goes into TechShare.
Okay.
Unless the file is absolutely too big. But sometimes it takes a long time to upload it into TechShare. It's a lot easier. Or if the file's so voluminous, we got to put it on a flash drive.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Member Rutledge?
Thank you, Chairwoman Chaplin. Thank you, Mr. Berlin, for your presentation and taking time to come to talk to us this morning or this afternoon, I guess we are now. You mentioned that you lost staff because they went to the private sector to make more money. Did you lose any to surrounding county state's attorney's office that were making more money?
We did, I think it was a couple years ago, we lost 2 assistants that went to Cook County for more
better
money.
pay.
I think part of that might have been a desire to live in the city. I think from what I have seen, our salaries are competitive with other counties. I think Lake County is probably still a little bit higher. But that being said, we cannot compete with the private sector.
And
And I don't think we're never going to be able to compete with
Of
the private
course,
sector.
of course. Thank you so much.
Member LaPlante?
Thank you so much, State's Attorney Berlin, for being here and for your presentation. Do you think that you will be able to compete with some other collar counties in terms of paying staff and recruitment and retention?
I believe so. I think we are competitive. And it's, again, almost everyone, the attorneys who leave the office are going into private practice. They're not going to another Collier County State's Attorney's office. There are some exceptions.
Okay, so to your point that you can't compete with the private sector, do you feel that you have what you need in order to have the best retention and the best recruitment?
So let me answer that by first of all saying that this board did approve significant raises for our attorneys this past year. And those went a very long way. We didn't have anyone leave for a while. Now, of course, we just had 3 leave in the past 3 weeks. We're competitive, but again, it is always a concern that we train attorneys. They're here for 5 or 6 years. They're just getting to that point where they can try serious cases. And then all of a sudden an offer comes along where they're going to make twice the money.
Right.
And, many of them are starting families and they leave. I mean, it's an issue that we continue to deal with. More money for salaries is always a great thing. It always helps.
Right.
What's that happy medium? We always struggle with that. I can tell you just because I pulled these numbers. In 2019, we had 16 attorneys that left the office. 2020, last year, there were only 7. Obviously, the market really slowed down during the pandemic. In 2021, we've had 4 so far, and then the one just put in their notice yesterday, so there will be 5 so far. So it started off this year at a smaller number. My fear is that as the economy improves, it could pick up.
Can I also, just one more question in terms of, we're seeing this in other departments too. And so we want to look at obviously the salary, but also workload. So sometimes it's a combination thereof. So does that affect anything, like an increased workload without an increased pay, that sort of thing? How does workload affect this as well?
It probably has some effect. I know that I can tell you our felony attorneys, many of the misdemeanor attorneys, they're here late at night and they're here on the weekends. And now that we're starting to see the body camera footage come in, it's a bit overwhelming. They're getting it done and they're going to do whatever it takes. They're putting in incredibly long hours. Now, it's for a lot of lawyers, for most attorneys in private practice, it's the same way. They're putting in long hours there too. That's just the nature of what we do. But I'll say this, I mean, my staff is incredibly dedicated and committed to the mission. So they do whatever it takes. And if that means you're here till 9 p.m. and on Saturday and Sunday, that's what they do.
Okay. Thank you. That really helps fill out the picture and gives us more details. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
So if I could just take a few minutes just to go to the
Yeah, and I
Children's
just,
Center.
can I just make a couple comments?
Oh,
So I
sure.
really appreciate you keeping your budget in line with last year, except for the salaries, which I know we're going to work on with finance a little bit, try to figure that out. So I really appreciate that. And secondly, I just want to remind the board members, I don't know if you're still offering it, but a few months ago, Member Chavez, Member Renahan, Member Garcia, and myself went over to visit Mr. Berlin, and we spent maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours watching how they go through those body camera film. And it was really eye-opening. And because we thought, you could just hire maybe somebody to sit there and watch it, but they really can't. So it really is going to be a very detailed and take a lot of manpower to go through that body camera footage. So I really appreciate that opportunity for you to show us that. That was great. And just a reminder, that's still available for those of you that hadn't had the opportunity to maybe get down there and check that out. But no, please.
Absolutely. No,
please go
and
ahead
we
and move
did, we
on.
had some other board members who we did the same meeting via Zoom. And we were able to show the same thing to the other board members, but we are always welcome to repeat that the same demonstration, or we always invite board members to come watch a trial and actually see what we do in court. So, okay, so just quickly regarding the Children's Center, our budget is $746,255. The same, we're asking for the same as what we had last year. And I can tell you, just as we were last year, we are stretched to the limit. Any decrease would significantly affect the operations of the center. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we saw an increase in cases that were referred to the center. In 2019, 293 cases were opened by our Children's Center. In 2020, it was 284. But for the first 6 months of 2021, we've already accepted 173 cases, which would project out to 346, which is a 22% increase over last year. These cases are sexual and physical abuse of children. They are the most disturbing cases that we see. They're in every single community. And we have agreements with all of our police departments to take those cases from start to finish. So we have trained investigators that investigate them. They interview the children in victim-sensitive interviews. Our attorneys review the cases, charge them, the ones that are appropriate, and actually handle those cases all the way through to prosecution. In this budget, again, we have money for our contract with Cellbrite, which is a forensic data extraction tool for mobile devices. It continues to be an enormous asset for our Children's Center in terms of gathering evidence. So again, we've always stayed within budget. We plan on staying within our budget again. I would only ask that if we get that big case where we have to go out and hire a lot of experts, and I have to come before you and ask you that there is a contingency for that. Obviously, I would come before the board and make the case for that. So we continue with our Children's Center. We recently went through the accreditation process. It's one of the finest children's centers, if not the finest children's center in the state. We have some incredibly talented investigators and case managers who work there, and some of the best experienced prosecutors in that center. It is really, it's the gold standard, I believe, in this state.
Do we have any questions regarding the Children's Center? Okay, Member Chavez.
Yeah, so this looks like a new line item altogether for the automotive equipment. Is that, can you just explain that as well? I think it's 80,000 at the very bottom of page 2.
So the,
Or page 3, I'm sorry.
which is the line item you're asking about?
Sorry, at the very bottom of page 3, I'm seeing a line item for 80,000 for automotive equipment.
Okay, yeah, the cars. Right, there's 2 cars that have to be replaced for our investigators, so we were told to put that in
Okay, so that's a current, you currently have them, they're just out of,
there.
running out of.
It's the
getting old.
mileage, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and so we're clear, it's only the investigators that have cars, none of the attorneys
okay,
have cars.
okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Member to start. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just have a couple rapid fire questions. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Berlin. Quickly, I see the $635,790 for regular salaries. How many employees does that cover? How many employees are employed by the Children's Advocacy Center?
One second. I believe it's 14. That
Okay,
case
thank you.
managers and investigators.
Thank you. And the $23,000 is pretty consistent every year in the overtime. Is that for nights and holidays and things like that when they have to go out?
Correct. They can get called out at any time.
Okay. And my final question was also about the 80,000 for the automotive equipment, and you've explained that. Is this 80,000 something that can wait till another year when we're a little more prosperous as a county, or do these cars need to be traded out because of mileage for sure in 2022?
Yeah, we're going to have Jeff Martinowitz or Nick come up and talk about a great new source of funding for vehicles we're putting together.
Okay. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. Berlin. Always appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, all the vehicles, just so you know, the vehicles are in the initial discussion right now, but as we develop and finalize a budget, all of that, any vehicles within the general fund budget will be swept. I mean, there's nothing that is out of the ordinary with the request. Right now, they've met either the mileage or they met the years. And I think you have 2 vehicles to be replaced. As you recall, one of the options that we talked about earlier with the excess funds in 2021 will be a vehicle replacement fund that might take care of that. So we're well aware of it. The final outcome of the state's attorney's budget, Children's Center, those will be out of there into the overall general fund vehicle replacement.
We did mention the vehicle replacement fund earlier in one of our other budget discussions, but I think it's going to be a really great fund, really responsible way to put our money away and pay for those vehicles as we go forward. Hey, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you. My
Everyone
pleasure.
in your department for all the hard work they do. We really appreciate everything. And thanks for coming up and giving your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Now we have Jeff York. Come on, welcome, Jeff. He is a public defender.
Okay. So what's a public defender? We represent indigent clients on pretty much criminal cases. There are some exceptions. Our office and all public defenders' offices were created by the US Supreme Court many years ago, over 50 years ago, interpreting the Constitution that basically your right to a fair trial and being represented by a lawyer doesn't depend on how much money is in your pocket. Did you switch the? Okay. For new board members, my budget presentation's a little different, and it's definitely different this year than it is most. The biggest thing this year is I need a lot more money, and I normally don't ask for much. So here's part of the problem. The Illinois Supreme Court commissioned the Sixth Amendment Center. It's a national organization that evaluates public defenders' offices across the country. They evaluated the state of Illinois in 2020. We started the process before the pandemic. Specifically, so the report came out just this summer, So most of the statistics and their work was done pre-COVID. My staff met with them both pre and during COVID. And it certainly was before the Safety Act. The findings of that commission or that report are basically, and I should tell you that DuPage was one of the sites they picked. I think they picked either 6 or 7 sites or counties. DuPage was one of those. So they evaluated almost all my staff. They looked at county board minutes. They looked at my budget. They had access to basically everything. One quote from that report: DuPage County Public Defender attorneys' workloads are excessive. That's pre-pandemic, pre-Safety Act. So, and that's not uncommon. That was across the state. We're no different than every other public defender's office in that respect. These are the monthly statistical reports. This is from May when I started this presentation. And 2016 is on the left. 2021 is on the right. Those are total files, active files in the office. So we went from, I can't see that, it's too small, 3,000 something to 4,000 something. In felony, we essentially doubled from 2016 to 2020, 2021. And misdemeanors kind of all over the place. Misdemeanors leveled off since then over the summer, but we've seen a steady increase in our active files with essentially the same staff. So it's not like I have new staff that don't know what they're doing. First, everybody has to thank you for things, and I'm going to do that too. 2 years ago, we converted 2 other positions to felony attorney positions. One was for focus court. We didn't have an attorney specifically to focus court, and we have one doing just exclusively post-conviction work. So thank you. Those have helped, especially in our felony division. This past year, the spring, you allowed me to add 2 headcount. We had attrition in our budget, so I didn't need money for it, but I needed the headcount. We added 2 to misdemeanor. We finally were able to find 2 we liked, and we're in the process of training them now. They're not even in court yet. So thank you. That's going to help. Let's talk about actual numbers. This is my stuff budget, and I'm only covering the line items you might care about. I'm not covering everything. And that's true of all the slides here. Our furniture is up a little bit, basically because I think I'm going to need more with onboarding more people. But overall, our stuff budget is less than it was in 2020, slightly more than last year. So how were we able to do that? How are we able to keep our costs low? And we have. When I started as public defender, and it's been a long time, but our book budget was $12,568. Almost immediately, I cut it about half, and then more. For statute books we get every year, we have 3-year contracts. We're locked into a price and it holds the price down. We were at about 4,300 for 2020. Our contract was up, and for 2021, they wanted 5,300 for the same amount of books. That made me crazy. I looked for other vendors, and I had done that in the past, and there really weren't any adequate ones out there. They would say things like, we don't know when we're going to publish, and I didn't think that was okay. But I tried again. I just paid for new books. I did not pay $5,300. I paid $2,613. So I basically cut it in half by exploring other vendors and finding ones that did meet our requirements. Online research is similar. We use Lexis. Most lawyers prefer Westlaw, but Lexis is cheaper. The last time I had to renew my contract with Lexis, I actually got a lesser rate than my prior 3-year contract. So that's how we're able to kind of hold those costs down. Services category. There's a bunch of numbers in here that you're not gonna like. Let's talk about dues first. Dues are going up because I'm asking for more lawyers, and we'll get to that in a minute. And software maintenance is similar. There's 2 components to software maintenance. One is more users means more licenses. So I need to pay for all those new people. But also data storage is in that category as well. And professional services, we're just gonna move on from that. We'll talk about that later, maybe. Let's talk about saving money again. I'll come back to that big increase there. Let's talk about data storage. When we built eDefender, it's not even 2 years old yet since we went live. We all thought, and I say we, my office, the state's attorney's office, and IT, the total storage that we thought we would need would be 1 terabyte. And I had to ask, a terabyte is 1 million books worth of data, and a terabyte comes for free with our subscription or whatever to that software. In our contract, each additional terabyte is $4,000 a year. Okay. We're in our 22nd terabyte. And I should say, it's not that we were short-sighted. I don't think anybody thought A, video was going to be this prominent, and B, we didn't plan on initially incorporating video into our systems. We were able to do it. I think it works much better that way. But that has increased our cost quite a bit. When I prepared this presentation, like in June, we were in our 20th terabyte. So we've added 2 terabytes, 2 million books worth of data in the last 2 months. So anyway, 22 terabytes is $88,000 a year extra in storage under our contract. In 2020, though, we didn't have as many users as we had originally contracted for in our system. So I paid $3,500 to the company that made this system. We were less than a year old, and I said, all this video is coming in, this is going to be a problem, we got to do something. And so we came up with a plan, and there's a different way to store things digitally that I don't necessarily understand, but it's true. And we're going to end up spending $22,000 this year instead of the $88,000 by storing it differently. The users really don't know the difference, but Amazon does, and it matters. That's still a lot of money for storage. And I said, 22,000 is a lot. What else can we do? And there's things called icebergs and things like that in the IT world where we can basically put it digitally in a much harder to get place. And if we don't touch it, it doesn't cost anything, or it's very much less money. So even though I didn't ask for as much as I really need under the current way we're doing it, I expect that this third way that we're going to store digital media evidence will reduce our costs. So I'm kind of hoping that equalizes. We've enthusiastically been this company's guinea pig because we get it first and it ends up costing us less. So they build it for us. We go through the heartache, I guess, of that or the work of that, and it ends up we get it cheaper and quicker. So we hope to implement that new way later this fall. All right, so let's get to the people part because that's where all the money is. Let's talk about regular salaries first.
Excuse me, we may have to hold up.
Okay.
We've just lost a quorum. Do you know if Member Petrikowski's coming back? We'll be taking a short recess.
It's going to get more fun, I promise. I hope not. Yes. Is Ms. to start count? Because she would be 10 now. Is Ms. to start count? Because that would be. Very popular today, Don. Can't do it without you, apparently. All right.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Please continue.
Sure. Okay, thanks. Let's talk about salary increases and this regular salary line item. The increase here is really twofold. It's the additional headcount that you approved mid-year. So I had attrition this year, but I don't have it in my budget yet for next year. And then you heard Mr. Berlin talk about significant raises his staff got last year. Mine didn't. And there's a significant difference between our offices. You know, Member LaPlante asked about workloads, and that is a huge concern of mine. And we're pretty heavy now, and we're going to get crushed. I can see it coming. And so I think just like Bob saw that merit or the money he was able to distribute to his staff helped a tremendous amount. I think I would have that same kind of bump for a while at a time when I think their caseloads are going to get difficult. Right. So I think that would help. So I'm asking for that equity in that line item. So new programs is also tremendously large number. And the bad news is when I built my budget, I didn't know I was supposed to incorporate COLA or not COLA, IMRF and all that other stuff. That's just salary. So I'm sorry. So it's actually a little higher than that. And so what does that number mean? Like, what do you get for $700,000? I'm asking for 10 lawyers, a receptionist, and an investigator. We currently don't have a receptionist. We just rotate the current secretaries we have. I used the receptionist position. We had one leave at the beginning of COVID, and we used that for someone, the attorney that went to focus court. So I converted that position. But we kind of need one. As Bob pointed out, 1,300 body cameras should be about 17 lawyers. He's asking for 13. I think that's prudent. I should mention, and that I'm not asking for 10 just for that, and I'll get into that in a minute. We are not the only county that's going to be asking for a large increase in staff. And it's not public yet, but there is another Collier County that's asking for more than Berlin did, more than I am for their staffs. So we are not going to be alone in this. I can tell you though, we have been on the front end of it in terms of preparing. When we started preparing a couple of months ago, no other county had even thought about it. I'm not even sure they had read the bill yet. So we are ahead of the game. But we are not going to be the only one asking this budget cycle for more money for positions. And so we're not going to be alone. So of the 10 lawyer positions I'm asking for, 8 are really only on account of the Safety Act. And the reason I'm only asking for 8 is basically I'm out of space. We'll get to that in a minute. This is my current courtroom staff, the lawyers in all the courtrooms, okay? So I'm trying to get to a half a lawyer more per courtroom. So if you take the 2 that we just added this current year, and then if I add 5 more, so those are the ones in black and white, that would get me to a half of an attorney per room. So adding 5 attorneys gets me to that level. So for those of you keeping score, that's only 5. You said 10. So 2 spots I need at the very end of the year, the last 2 months of 2022. And my budget request only includes the money for those 2 months at the end. We're going to have these pretrial detention hearings. And the state's attorney's office already has a staff that is full-time looking at new cases. We don't, we rotate through. And I anticipate that these hearings are going to go much longer and are much more involved. And we're going to have much more access to the information that the state's attorney currently does that we will get because of the new law. So I anticipate we're going to need 2 full-time people to do those hearings. But we won't need it till the end of the year. So we need some time to train them, get other people on board to take their place and things like that. That's still 3 that I haven't talked about. And this is why. I don't know if I need more. I just don't know. I mean, it's unreasonable for me to say, give me the 3 and I'll figure it out. I don't know yet. Is a half an attorney per room enough? I don't know. Based on other jurisdictions, based on the studies that I've done, I'm on the low side. And there's a lot of what ifs. Do I need a second full-time person in DV instead of a half a person? Maybe. And you heard Bob's presentation. He mentioned specifically domestic violence. It's a misdemeanor courtroom, heavy volume, and I anticipate heavy body camera. Victim statements, alleged victim statements, my client's statements could all be videos. And I think that's going to be one of those courtrooms. It's going to be heavier than we anticipate. Do I need more attorneys? Right now, they added 1 attorney for 3 DUI rooms. That's probably low. Do I need more help in felony in general? And do I need an investigator to help manage some of this discovery and parse it out for trials and things? So it's kind of a recap, and I don't know, the color didn't work out so well on the screen. The numbers in black, I think I definitely need. The ones in blue, those last 2 breaking glass numbers are, if I need to break the glass, I'll need them then. So nobody wants to break the glass. So what are we going to do to try to prevent that, at least for a little while? Let's go back to services and that huge increase in professional services. My staff and I tested some software that helps process video and audio files. It's a tremendous time saver. It allows attorneys to cut down some of the time it takes to review those materials. It is not perfect. We hope to integrate it into eDefender, our case management software. And I put enough in this line item to cover my entire staff for 1 year. I'm also confident I can negotiate a lower price than what they quoted me initially, and I will. It's not perfect. The technology is new. It doesn't eliminate the need for people completely, but it will mitigate, I think, some of the crush of all these videos and help us slow down how fast we need to add people. And that's kind of what I'm hoping that it will do. So we're not done, but we're close. Talked about a few of the elephants in the room, no one personally. So when I was in high school, my mom and dad, I had a summer job that I hated. My first day I wanted to quit. And they taught me, look, you can do anything in the short term, suck it up. You can do it for 3 months. And they were right. I ended up staying with that job for like 3 years after that. I've applied that same kind of principle as the public defender. However, there are some areas in which we're well beyond the short term. So have I asked for enough? I don't know, maybe not. Interviewing, finding the right people, training them does take a significant amount of time, and it's unrealistic. I can onboard 15 people at once. It's just not realistic. If you do it right, it takes time. So in the short term, if I didn't ask for enough, I'll be back here in a year saying I didn't ask for enough, and I'm sorry. But in the short term, we'll suck it up, just like I did that summer. And I think I'm limited as to what I can ask for now. I don't have enough space. I am landlocked, and the 2 lawyers we just hired and are onboarding, we had to move 2 investigators and the investigations intern areas and basically eliminated those areas for lawyers. The next several lawyers I'm going to hire will be officing in storage closets where we currently have files. It's already hard enough to find people in any industry, really. And it took us 4 months to find the ones we're currently training. So adequate and appropriate space should be a given, but we're having issues. Now I have ideas. That's a couple of them. Put them right on the pond out there. Could have dinner at night or something. I don't know. Realistically, the circuit house outgrown the annex building. No one really could have predicted this. No one saw this coming. I'm a planner. I overplan, and I didn't see this as a problem, but it's a problem. And we need to start doing something sooner rather than later, because any changes are going to take a significant amount of time. Facilities has been great. We've met with some architects trying to maximize what we already have. But the problem is we're just out of space. And if anyone has been in my office, you know that. And I welcome you to come if you'd like. But even with all of these other small solutions they've come up with, by putting people in closets and grabbing conference space, 2023, 2024, 2025 are going to be huge problems unless we're going to start building lofts and forts and building up within our office space. It's just not realistic. So I have a feeling we'll be meeting with you soon as we kind of look at some of the possible solutions. And I look forward to that, but we're out of space, and that limits how much I can really ask for in terms of help. So in summary, I need a little bit more than $1 million. I am ready for any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Member Pachowski, go ahead, please.
Now, I always feel you always come to our meetings and do your budget, and it seems like you always go on the low side. You always pull a rabbit out of your hat. You always negotiate. I'm concerned about the space because it seems to me you got to have a work environment, and I don't know how we address that, but I think that's something that's going to be addressed sooner rather than later. And I think it works well when we have a state's attorney and public defender that are both adequately funded, adequately staffed, because it furthers justice. So I appreciate the way you negotiate stuff. I'm going to buy my next car with you present. But I'm just hoping that, you know, with space and personnel, that we don't sell ourselves short, and we need to address the space issue sooner rather than later, because a lawyer can't be working in a broom closet. You can't have 6 people piled on top of each other. So I appreciate the job you do defending those less fortunate in DuPage. And I just hope that your request, and if we have to break glass, then we have to do what's best for the rest of us.
Thank you. So we have member Tornatori, member Selman, then member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jeff. I echo all of, it's on. I echo all of Member Pachowski's comments. One thing I didn't notice, and I think I heard it from you in one of our Zoom presentations last month, many of your clients use English as a second language. So when you're going through the videos, which are going to be presumably in, let's say, Spanish, and your lawyers don't understand Spanish, you're going to have to translate that, or vice versa, at some point, be they having to be transcribed or get somebody to literally sit there while your people are watching the video and translating it as they watch it. Has that been factored into your budget in any way?
Yes and no. We have a service that we use now to speak to clients over the phone. So that wouldn't work for video. The video service that we're planning on using does have the ability to translate to other languages. Now, I don't know that then it translates to English. So I might get the transcript in Polish. We do have a line item for professional services. So we have hired out before if we need a video transcribed in a language other than Spanish. We can do Spanish in-house. That's the bulk. We do have our professional services contract for that, but body cameras are a whole nother ballgame. So we don't know. That is going to be a challenge. And I don't know how often that's going to happen yet. So I think we could make do on the short term because we haven't really seen it. But if we get a crime situation where someone speaks a language other than Spanish, we're going to have to hire out probably to have that translated. Is it factored in my budget? No, but I don't usually spend my entire professional services budget. Just like Bob mentioned, we have in the past. If we get a really big case with a lot of experts, I'll be back here. Often we don't get there. And so that is the part of my budget where interpreters would come out of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have member Selman, member Ozad, member Renahan, member Schwarzy.
Thank you. So I'm the non-lawyer in District 1, so you can tell me if this is a dumb question. I think with every other department where we're getting a space squeeze, we're trying to make sure we're maximizing, work from home and those sorts of alternatives. Can you speak to whether those are an option for you, or is the way that the public defenders work that them working remotely is just not really an option?
They can work remotely in a piecemeal way, but the way that the court runs, we kind of need them, A, to have space and be around, and it's unpredictable. So during COVID, we had very distinct teams. There were members of my team I didn't see for the whole pandemic. And we didn't cross paths because, God forbid, somebody got sick and we had to take half my staff and eliminate them. The other half would have to come in and work until they were okay. So, so we did work remotely. We can review evidence, we can review video, but the judges are kind of important enough they can say, no, you are going to be here next Tuesday. So that happened during COVID where we had staff members coming in to do hearings and trials that weren't allowed into our office space to mix with us. They would just go directly to court. So we can do some of that, but it's not a realistic plan in terms of saving a space in the long run. We've looked at that and like sharing workstations. It doesn't really work for lawyers with their own files and things like that. And the setting of trials is really not up to us. It's more up to the court. And so controlling that is more difficult to plan for.
Member Ozad, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to compliment you on your presentation. I really
Thank you.
appreciate the interjection of humor, makes it memorable, but we also know how serious the issues are that you're going to be facing this year. And my husband is an attorney. I'm going to go home and suggest blue hair because the Simpsons slide was particularly, I liked the attorney caricatures.
Thank you.
But I really do appreciate the way you present to us. I really think it's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Member Renahan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with my Vice Chair, Pachowski. I don't know if we should wait to be, breaking glass. I don't want it to be like your high school job that you had for 3 years. So it's supposed to be 3 months, I think it might be time to address some things. And that being said, I do appreciate you're doing it incrementally, yourself and State's Attorney Berlin to do this incrementally, because we do have a lot to go with the Safety Act, and you're being cost effective and watching head count. It really makes a big difference. And we will be having that discussion on space, I'm told, in the next couple months.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Member Renahan. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. And this question may be more for Mr. Kottmeyer. Does expanding the space at all qualify any ARPA funds? Based on why they're hiring maybe new, more attorneys, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I could give just a quick update. Actually, I appreciate Public Defender York actually kind of setting the table. So facilities management has been working for several months. Once the, Safety Act came out, we knew right away that this was going to be a problem. I mean, it's not just public defender. I mean, it's affecting probation. It's affecting the state's attorney, public defender. I mean, it really is in that building. When we built it, I was here when we built it 20 years ago. There was like empty rooms everywhere. It is at capacity right now, without a doubt. And then you add the staffing that is going to be needed for this, as well as I think that there's been discussion that Mr. York office was maybe, understaffed up to this point. So we actually, to give you guys an update, we brought on an architect several months ago to look at options. And we'll be coming to probably finance or even board itself and presenting options to see what we could do for all of those departments. We've been meeting with the departments throughout, and we just had a meeting with them, maybe a week or two ago, to present some initial options. And there's going to be a back and forth in those options to kind of pin it down, because we want to come to you so that we're all on the same page, staff as well as all the electeds, and say, here's option A, B, and C for what it would be. We obviously, part of it is maximizing what we have, better use of the space, and we are getting some of that in all the departments. But there is definitely an expansion component. And the break the glass slide, I'll kind of let you know right now, chances are we're going to be in the break the glass, it's not going to be cheap to enlarge it, and just to kind of set the stage for it. It's a distinct possibility that we could be. And as far as your ARPA question, unfortunately, no, we can't find a way for ARPA to work. So you're talking contingency.
And I should mention, Nick and staff, the architects have been fantastic. We've met at length with them about what our needs are, what our future needs are, what are we lacking now in terms of space for our clients, and how to interview them better, how to reuse the same space for multiple purposes. I mean, they've been great. We've met several times with all the departments. So we're hoping to bring that to you soon.
Thank you. Member Desart, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Jeff, I have to say, I always appreciate your humor. Your presentations are awesome. So thank you for bringing levity to our discussions. I wanted to share an idea that I shared this morning in Public Works. I don't know any board members who regularly use their board offices. Maybe Nick can give you a little tour afterward. I would certainly give you a tour, but I'm not there this afternoon. But we've got 6 offices back there in a little mini conference room. And since the board really doesn't use them, I'm wondering if that could be a space for your new hires. So there's at least 7 spaces back there behind the bathrooms there on the 3rd floor. You might want to check that out and put your dibs in. Thank you.
Thank you. Member LaPlante, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So can I see, would you please tell me if this is an accurate summation of what you are dealing with and also asking for? So it sounds like this is very tough and important work that is being done, obviously,
Yes.
in the public defender's office. And for these facilities, this issue that you're having with inadequate facilities, because that's what they are, right? Will that have an impact on recruitment and retention and competition in terms of workload, the environment, and the pay?
That's a good question. I have a staff that doesn't leave. I would say my turnover rate is 3%, 4%. My average employee, I just actually ran the numbers today because someone asked the question this morning of Bob McKellen. My average employee is 10 years. The only reason I'm under 10 years is because the 2 people we onboarded 2 weeks ago, I'm at 9.6, but before that we were like 10.4 or whatever. And it just depends. So we don't have people leave at the same rate. I don't know why that is. I think people enjoy the work, and I think we're very careful on who we bring on. So if someone we don't think is going to enjoy it, we don't hire them. Or I'm an awesome boss. I'm not sure which. We'll go with that. So we don't have people leave often. Now, that being said, we did have someone leave a few weeks ago to the private sector, making a lot more money. I mean, it does happen. It happens somewhat infrequently. But I think, yes, but it's no one's fault. No one, it wasn't a huge problem until now that I'm asking to add all the staff. I mean, so last year it wasn't even a concern. I mean, we were close to capacity, but we had space for interns and stuff like that. Now we don't. And so that's the bigger concern, is we just didn't have any flexibility in the current space that we have. So we're going to have to be creative, I think, in keeping people happy. I mean, I'm always looking at things to do for or with my staff that doesn't cost money or not a lot. I have a box of random things on my floor right now that some of my staff have seen it and like, what are we doing with the Lucky Charms? I'm like, don't worry about it. You know, I mean, so I think, you know, like at lunchtime, like I'm going to try to do things like that to keep people motivated and happy. We used to have a foosball table. We got rid of that, you know, space. So we used to play foosball at lunch and stuff like that. I mean, so it is going to be a challenge, but isn't it? It's hard to know the impact, but it's hard to say, you've graduated law school, you're a lawyer, congratulations, here's a closet. You know, that's going to be a hard sell. You know, to her credit, one of my misdemeanor attorneys, one of the misdemeanor attorneys we're going to onboard was going to be in an area separate from all the other misdemeanor lawyers. And one of my more experienced ones said, I'm going to move, let him be with everybody else, because it would be so hard to be an island. I'm fine. You know what I mean? And that was great that she was able, you know, she did that. So I have a great staff that we'll figure it out, but it is going to become an increasingly big problem.
Yes, clearly, I think we can all see that. I think that I'm sure that most of my colleagues would agree that it's better to make these sorts of decisions not in a non-emergency sort of situation, i.e. it's never wonderful to have to break the glass and then act quickly. So you clearly delineated the challenges that you are facing and that you will be facing. And to me, they make perfect sense in terms of being proactive and to prevent, you know, a double loft in a closet room.
Right.
And I too enjoyed your presentation. One critique I have is, can we have more Lisa Simpson?
In prior presentations, Lisa was more prominent. Every year I change up the graphics I use.
I hear, okay, that's good to hear, but I think she can make another comeback. Thank you so much.
All right, sure.
Any other questions? Okay, Jeff, I just have a couple comments. Thank you so much. You know, since I've been on the board, I know you've been understaffed, struggling. You know, we really have a lot of critical needs. You know, there are certain responsibilities that this county has to fund. You know, and we can't unfortunately use reserves to balance our budget, because if you use reserves, you have an unbalanced budget, and you can't use reserves for operational expenses. So we're really we're in sound financial shape, but as you can see, we have a lot of really tough decisions to make ahead. And, you know, it kind of pains me when I hear these elected officials come before us with all of their needs, you know, and we really struggle to meet them. So, you know, Jeff has waited a long time, and I hope that there's some way that we can really help you out, but we really have to start prioritizing what our critical needs are here at the county and, you know, what aren't. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Thank your staff for all the work that they do and everything. So thank you very much. We lost our member, so we are now out of a quorum, correct? Yeah, so we're going to move to adjourn. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.